Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Into the Terminal. Today, we're going to be talking about security hardened Linux images. Wow, not enough
Speaking is
coffee.
hard, Scott.
It is. So, Nate, why don't we jump into the terminal and start talking about things that have to do with security hardened images?
Absolutely. Do you see? It's doing the thing again where I don't see my share. Are you seeing my share?
Yes, we can see your share.
Okay, all right. I'll just have to trust it then. Okay, so I thought we would start with kind of some basics because this is the critical path after all, right? Before we had tools like Image Builder, which we are going to talk about today, there was another way to get this done. And a lot of people probably still live in this world. So first thing we're going to try is a tool called Vert sysprep. Okay, so imagine you've done an install of RHEL, like in a virtual machine, you then connected to that machine and made a bunch of changes to harden it. Maybe you used OpenSCAP, maybe you did things manually, maybe you added accounts, maybe whatever it is that your policies dictate. And then you want to use that as a VM template, or maybe you want to upload it to your cloud provider later, something like that, right? There's this tool called Vert sysprep. It comes from the libguestfs packages, right, which you can install on RHEL. It's usually installed along with libvirt if you're installing it and running things locally. And that's what I'm going to use today to take a base image that I've already got. I actually built a machine last week when we were talking about Kickstart, so I could show you what a Kickstart file looked like. Remember that? I'm going to use that VM to build a sysprepped disk image. So, wow, typing is also hard. So I'm going to go to varlib libvirt images, right? That's where I keep all my disk images for all of my virtual machines. And there's a virtual machine called KS. Oh, it's dash all, not dash A. I'm used to Podman here. Called KS base. That's the machine I built last week manually, right? Now, Vert sysprep will let you target either a VM, preferably one that's shut off. You can sysprep a VM that's like defined in libvirt, or you can take that VM's disk image, right? Which is exactly what I'm going to do here. So the machine's already shut off. I'm going to make a copy of its disk image. So ksbase.qcow2, that's the machine that's the disk image for that particular machine. And I'm going to copy it to something that's a little more generic. Golden dash, I don't know, we'll say Q1 dash 2025 because, let's make this look realistic. Right? And now I just basically made a copy of that thing's disk image. And now Vert sysprep works actually pretty simply. You do Vert dash sysprep. And then if you were targeting a virtual machine, there's a different command line option to do this, but I'm going to target the disk. You do dash A, which sounds weird. Equate that to add, right? Dash A, add this disk image. And then the disk image. Right. And what this is going to do when I hit enter is it's going to go through a bunch of modules that basically are built into Vert sysprep that clean out things within this disk image that are identifiable to this machine. So things like udev rules, things like SSH host keys, right? So this one right here, you see that on the screen there. It's cleaning out the host keys that were generated when this thing booted the first time, password backups, PAM data, network information, host names, all the things that are specific to this machine are now getting cleaned out of this disk image. And then what I can do is I can take that disk image now that it's done, and I can spin up a new virtual machine from it, and it'll come up as though I just finished the installation, and it'll regenerate all of those customizations or all those things that are specific to the machine on the first boot. So for example, I talked about SSH host keys. Those, of course, are unique per machine, right? And when you boot up the first time, when the SSH daemon starts up, it'll generate new keys. So what this basically did is it deleted those keys. I used to do this manually back in the old days. So I would delete things like the udev rules, and I would delete the SSH host keys, and there's like subscription manager registration data that I would clean out. This goes deeper, and it cleans out stuff that I never thought to remove, right? So pretty good stuff. And That's pretty much the demo. I could spin this up in a VM if somebody wanted to see that, but just, keep in mind, this is kind of how the tool works.
Yeah, and so people who come from a virtualization background, they're used to sealing their templates,
Yep.
right? And that's what this tool is doing. Is it's
Right.
making it so that we can make duplicates without having artifacts left over.
Right. Right. So yeah, the idea would be that I can spin up a new machine from this disk image. Or if I did it on the machine that was there, I could clone that virtual machine. And by cloning it, I then have a copy of the way that machine was configured. But all of the data that identifies that machine is wiped out. So that all gets regenerated because this is a new machine, because we don't want those things to conflict when the machine comes up.
Right. So stay with us, everyone, as we transition to the longer block of content in the show, where we're going to be going through and generating some of these disk images using various and sundry image building technologies that come with Red Hat or RHEL. And what else, Nate?
Yeah, so we've got some demos for 2 different ways you might run Image Builder, and we can build in that compliance and security hardening right there from the get-go.
Yep. So don't forget to mash that like and subscribe button so that you can get more content when we're making new stuff. And we will see you in just a moment. Whew. Transition. So today we're going to be talking about building images. And so, Nate, why would you want to build compliance into your disk image?
Well, really what it comes down to is when you're deploying new machines, whether that's in the cloud or physical machines or in your virtual data center, your virtual infrastructure, the more time you can save, the more repeatable the compliance is, right? Then the easier it is to get it done and the easier it is to not miss things on that checklist, right? So if you're doing it like the old way, you'd pop in installation media, build a machine, and then you'd have to remember or have a checklist of all the changes you want to make. Things have matured, right? Things are better now. You can do things automatically with OpenSCAP, but why not just do that once and put it into the disk image so that next time you build a machine, it's already done, right? And that's basically what we're talking about today.
Yeah, and specifically, compliance standards aren't just installation choices. There's also user management controls, software stuff, policy things like how frequently you apply updates and what updates you apply. There's like a lot of other things, right? It's not just choices that we make at install, but the choices that we make at install are often really hard to undo. A great example is file system layout.
Yeah.
Like you have to have a specific file system layout for your compliance standard. Going back on a running machine and trying to put that into place is very challenging. So if we can do some of this stuff at install time so that we're in a good shape to then handle all the operational components of our compliance standard. So Nate, shall we build a box?
Yeah. I think we should build a box. So we have 2 different versions of Image Builder we're going to show. I think, Scott, you're going next with Insights Image Builder, which we have shown before on this show, but we haven't shown the features where we can apply compliance. But yeah, Scott, go ahead. Let's have fun looking at Insights Image Builder.
Right on. So if you've not seen Image Builder before, it's a Red Hat tool that allows you to make a disk image that you can output to different formats. So you generate what's called a blueprint, and then you can build that same blueprint, but output it as a VMware OVA file, or a Amazon AMI, or a Azure Virtual Hard Disk. And so it's the same build instructions, just the how it comes out the other side is different.
Yeah.
Historically, when we've talked about it, it's been about this like multi-deployment thing where you can know that your system is built in the same way with the same software, with the same file system layout, with the same first boot scripting executed on it. But you can do that locally or in the cloud or on your VM infrastructure. And so all of that is still true, but now we're going to be adding the additional wrinkle of compliance standard. All right, so I went ahead and logged in to the console.redhat.com site, and you can see the very first tile there is Insights for RHEL. So I'm going to go ahead and select that one. And this brings up all the normal insights things you may have seen in the past, like how many CVEs are outstanding in my fleet and other stuff. But today what we're interested in is images. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new blueprint. And it has this little wizard so that we can answer these questions to then create a built system. So one of the things I like about Image Builder, Insights Image Builder, or Online Image Builder, is that I can choose my release, right? So notice that I can support RHEL 9, RHEL 8, or RHEL 10 beta. And then based off of my selection, there may be some other customizations that happen. But on RHEL Image Builder, which Nate is going to show us in a bit, the version of the operating system on which you are building images is the version of the images that are built. So if you're using a RHEL 9 host, you make RHEL 9 images. And if you want to make RHEL 8 images, you need a RHEL 8 host.
Yeah.
So Insights Image Builder adds this like additional flexibility. So I'm going to make a
And
RHEL
the fact
9.
that you don't have to host any infrastructure is also nice, especially for cloud users, right? You know, if you live 100% in the cloud, why would you want to run infrastructure to run Image Builder when you can just use ours?
Exactly. The other customization that Image Builder has is Insights Image Builder. Man, Insights Image Builder has is the
Friday, Scott. Week's almost over.
If I can only so just like we were talking about with the operating system version for on-premise Image Builder, the same thing is true for architecture. So if you're building images on an x86-64 box, then the images you're making are x86-64 images. But with Insights Image Builder, we can actually choose to build the image on a different system behind the scenes, invisible to you, which means we can offer you options for what architecture the image is built for. So currently we support x86-64, which is pretty standard, or ARCH64, which is ARM architecture.
Right.
So I'm going to choose x86-64. And then as I scroll down, I tell it the output format I want it to be in. So notice all the cloud providers are there. And if you choose a cloud provider, some additional questions will open up on things like where are we going to put the image if you want to upload it directly to your cloud provider. It'll also determine things like the output format. So AMI versus QCOW2 versus VHD. Or you can choose VMware. Or you can choose a local QCOW2. So for example, if I was giving this image to Nate, I might make it as a QCOW2 so he could import it into his locally running hypervisor there in his home lab. Or bare metal installer, it's actually an ISO that when I boot the machine off of it, it will perform an install. So a little bit different there. All right. So
what I like about those cloud provider integrations is that, and you kind of you mentioned this, but very briefly, that it'll push it to your cloud provider, right? So if I picked AWS or Google Cloud or Azure, and I've got credentials configured within Insights, then it'll actually take that resulting image and push it right over to the cloud provider. It'll show up in my custom images, which is really handy. You can even launch a VM from it right from the console here, which is kind of cool. I shouldn't say VM. Instance. Instance is the right word in the cloud, even though we all know it's a VM.
All right. So to keep things simple, I'm just going to use a VMware image.
Okay.
And then the next step is, would I like the machine to automatically register with Red Hat? And if so, what activation key should I use for performing that registration? So I'm not going to get into activation keys and stuff. But we actually have a short video that Matthew made about making activation keys. So if you're interested, you can look over in our shorts content and see one that's been generated. And then down towards the bottom is any additional repositories that should be included. All right. So here's the zhuzh. This is what we've been waiting for. The OpenSCAP profile. So what security standard is this system going to comply with? And so when you pop up this pull down, there's a big list. So we have ANSI, which is the French security standard that their government issues. CCN, which is another one issued for government use cases. If you're unfamiliar with all of these or which ones are important or not important, a great one to start off with is the CIS benchmark. The CIS benchmark is just kind of like a general industry standard for security compliance. And there are actually 2 levels. So level 1 is relatively minor, and level 2 is more stringent on what has to be the case for the machine to be considered compliant. And if I scroll down through the list, we'll see the Australian Essential 8, HIPAA, there's PCI DSS, DISASTIG, right? So there's a whole bunch that you can choose from. But I'm going to choose Sys Benchmark for Workstation.
And these are the same base rule sets that you can access through compliance within Insights too. So if you're leveraging compliance, you can also find those same rule sets over there. I don't think this will do custom rules yet, though. Insights Image Builder. I'd have to look into that. I don't think it does.
So one of the important things to notice here is the disabled services. So it says if these are on the machine, they will be turned off by default. And that's part of the requirements of CIS level 1 benchmark security compliance. Similarly, we have the enabled services that will also be there. And I'm just going to hit next. And what I want to show you is that the other component is the file system layout. Right?
And who changed your file system layout, Scott? How did that happen?
It was auto magic. Because I chose CIS benchmark level 1, CIS benchmark level 1 says you have to have a separate temp file system. And so I went ahead and created it in my file system layout. Now, one note, notice the disk sizes are very small.
Yeah.
So you want to like adjust things that are coming out, right? This is just like, I don't know how you're going to be using the machine. So Red Hat just makes guess. And hopefully like cloud instances are usually small. So we usually guess small. So you can
still add additional partitions here if you need to. You can still change the sizes. You know, you can still configure this. It's just that if you delete that temp, you will no longer be in compliance with the thing you asked it to be in compliance with.
Right. And then I did want to also show this. If I go back and I change my compliance standard, let's say I do CIS level 2 for server. So one, we get some additional kernel arguments thrown in there. So when I boot the machine, it will boot with these arguments. The disabled services got a little bit more severe, turns off things like Bluetooth. And when I hit next, CIS 2, has a whole bunch more file systems that it needs as separate file systems. And the reason for this is that when a file system fills up, it will affect applications and users that utilize the disk space in that file system. But if you only have one file system, / and it fills up, then it affects the entire system. And
yeah, so there's also mount options that some of these dictate that you need to apply, like home and temp, I think, with CIS level 2. Both need to be, no exec and no set UID?
Yeah, no SUID. That is correct.
Yeah.
And so that'll be taken care of as well here. But the reason that we have these separate file systems, so home, any user can create file contents in home, right? So if they do something silly and like make huge files, it can fill up the home file system. Temp, any user or process on the system can put things in temp. So if a process is dry, it can like fill up your temp directory and you wouldn't want it to crash the machine because you run out of disk space.
So I don't know if you can work this into your demo, but Shantanu asks, can you show what happens if you delete one of those required partitions? Like, does it slap you or does it just let you go ahead and do it?
Let's see. It lets you.
Yeah, I think that'll just, now you've willingly gone out of compliance.
Yeah. Now, Hold on, let me see if I can put it back. No, it doesn't put it back. Oh, Shantanu. Now I have to add a new back again.
I bet if you went back and changed the profile and switched it back, it would put it back for you, if that's easier.
We'll just do that. All right. Where was I? So yes, when you take it out, you're no longer in compliance with that standard. However, there might be a really good reason why you have to be out of compliance with the base standard.
Right.
And so all of these standards also have the ability to make exceptions. And so while you won't be in compliance with the base standard, you will have documentation that you'll be asked to make that says why you have chosen to do something differently than the standard. And maybe there's a really good reason for that. And as long as it's documented.
That's all about policy, right? Like that's not a technical control. That's you have gotten an exception. You've documented why the exception is. Maybe your InfoSec team has that filed somewhere, or you have to present it if they ask, that kind of thing, right? Like that has nothing to do with Image Builder.
Well, and the compliance scanners like OpenSCAP or the compliance utility provided here through Insights, you can actually adjust the scan to say, I don't need to comply with this element. And then your scan will simply skip that thing when it's calculating your compliance statistics or the errors that it produces of how you're out of compliance. This one won't count as a miscompliance.
Right.
All right. So var is for variable length content. You could have a lot, you could have a little, but things like email get stored here. Like if you're a mail server and you get a bunch of email, that could fill up the file system and crash your machine. That's not what we want. So we separate
log.
Yep. Same thing with logs. And then the one down lower, var temp, this is one that most people overlook. Var temp is also a world writable file system, just like /temp, that applications and users can put stuff in. And so that's why it's separated out, is because applications and users can use this disk space. And if it fills up, you don't want to have negative effects on your system.
And I think that other var log that's listed there is like var log audit or var log secure or something like that, which you probably want separate so that you're sure that it doesn't get truncated, right?
Correct. It is var log audit is what it is. All right. Cool. So this is actually a fairly new feature of Insights. So when I'm doing the install, what do you want me to install off of? Latest content means it's just going to install off of all the latest RPMs available from the Red Hat CDN. Use a snapshot. We will have needed to set something up in advance. But what you can do is like basically make a fork of the RHEL repos based on a date. And then you can point your installs at that fork so that you know exactly what packages and versions are being handled because you made the fork at a certain time, and that's your content set. And until you make a new fork, that is a content set in stone. So you could use a snapshot, which is a forked content set given a specific time. I'm just going to use the latest because we're living on the edge.
Yeah, and those are usually for, I've got quarterly content that I've accepted as this is my base for this quarter. That's what I want to start things from. Maybe you then have exceptions that you have to install updates for that are CVEs or whatever, but yeah.
Yeah, but that can be done as part of the runtime of when new instances are forked off of this template.
Right.
All right. This custom repositories, so we've added extra packages for Enterprise Linux into our build environment. So I can just check a box, and now I have access to all the extra packages for Enterprise Linux RPMs as well. But if you have your own additional packages, as long as you can get to them from Insights, you can add in these custom repos.
Very important for if you want Moonbuggy or Cowsay.
Exactly. But really, extra packages for Enterprise Linux gives you lots of different things. A ton of different Python libraries. There's over 20,000 packages currently. We actually talked with Carl George earlier in the week on Matt's RHEL 10 beta series, and he was telling us some about how EPEL is built and how much is going into it, and the fact that there's already an EPEL 10, by the way, for 10 beta. So you can install these extra packages if you want, or you can leave it unselected, and then they're not going to be eligible for your package selection.
I feel bad. I haven't watched any of those yet. I'm going to have to go back and watch them. RHEL 10, guys, it's coming. Good stuff.
You're missing out. All right. So we're getting down to the end, right? You can see on the left-hand side, there was like a nav element that was telling me how far I was getting in my different choices.
Yep.
So additional packages. So beyond just like the minimum packages, what more stuff do you want? So maybe I want Nginx. There we go. And maybe I want Node.js. There we go. And maybe I want
Moonbuggy.
Well, I didn't select EPEL, so I won't be able to find Moonbuggy.
Oh, I thought you did. Sorry, I was not. I was looking at the chat.
Okay. All right, and maybe I want a database, right? Because this machine is also going to do some web application server stuff. All right, and then down a little bit further, a couple months ago, we added
I like this, by the way. This is a great addition.
We added in recommended packages. It's part of our Lightspeed series of AI augmentation of products to make them easier to use or more helpful. So based off of what I've selected in my packages, these are packages that other people building images often select as well. So you can just click the add package button and it would go into your image, or you can choose to ignore it like I'm going to do, and it won't go into your image. All right, this last bit is also fairly new. So you can actually either drag and drop a bash script, or you can write it by just clicking, what's the click? Oh, start from scratch, which was hidden, which will bring up an editor and you can just start typing. So this is a first boot script. So you've made the image and now you're deploying an instance or a VM off of the template of this image. These are the scripts that will automatically execute at boot time. So historically, we've relied on things like Cloud Init to have it run things when it's initializing. And this is another way that you can do that without using some of the things that come with Cloud Init. So you can just
you'll notice it didn't ask you to do anything like add a user, right? Or even set the root password. So the first time you boot up this image, you have to do something to add in a user. And previously that was Cloud Init. You'd have to use Cloud Init to do something like set up a cloud user, for example, or maybe add an automation user, add your first user account, something that you can get into this machine with. Now you can do it through this as well if you wanted to. And it even gives you a warning about sensitive data. So be careful how you define a user. If you're putting a user in here, make sure passwords are hashed, that kind of thing. Here you are again with the clear text passwords. We're going to start an argument. It says it right there. Don't include sensitive information, Scott.
All right. Next.
How'd you guess my password, by the way?
Because everyone knows that Nate loves dogs. All right. The last thing is just how we're going to keep track of it in the insights bits. So blueprint name. There you go. And then you can add a more detailed description. There you go. And next. And then it just gives me a chance to review all of my things. And this is something else I thought was really cool. So it used to be that you have to click the create blueprint button and then go over to the other thing and say, make this image. Now, if you use that little blue toggle pull down, there's an option to combine them. Create the blueprint and build an image. And so here's my image building for my web application server CIS level 2.
Yay.
So once this is done, I'll be able to download it. And there is a timer on your images that you make. So I think there's 6 hours, if I remember correctly, that you have to download the image with.
Right.
And it's automatically removed if you after that time. But the blueprint will stay around. So if I missed the window or I need another one like this, I can go back in, find my web application server CIS level 2 blueprint, and just build another one, or make any changes to that blueprint I want and build another one.
Yeah, the other thing I really like though is if you click on those 3 dots next to the build, you can download a JSON request. And then you can, if you go look up the documentation on how to leverage the Insights API, you can pass that JSON request back to the Insights API through like a script or your Ansible automation or something, and it'll go and repeat this build process. So, say you're cooking up some automated build process that you do quarterly, you can just make it happen. You don't have to have some admin spend 20 minutes going through that web UI wizard again, or even have to go back there and click that button, right? You can just submit that and it'll go build a new one for you.
Well, and part of the JSON is also the output type. So you can also like kick off 3 builds of different types. So you get all your target deployment environments covered.
Right. So we're already at 12:30. Well, our time. We're already half past. How's that? But we do have one more demo, and that is basically kind of the same thing, except using what we call RHEL image builder instead of Insights image builder. And I just realized that's kind of small. Let me make it bigger. That should be better. Okay, so I've already cooked up an image to test this out with, but I'm on a RHEL 9 system, 9.4, I think. I updated it before I installed everything. I have Cockpit enabled, obviously, right? So this is the web console. There's a plugin for web console called, I think, Cockpit-Composer. I have it in my notes here. I think it's what I called it. You have to have that plugin installed, and then the OS build compose packages that actually enables image builder on a RHEL machine. And then in order to do the compliance stuff, you also have to have the SCAP security guide installed. Just as if you were going to run OpenSCAP on this RHEL machine, you have to have that installed because it's going to reference that to do the compliance piece when you're building an image on RHEL image builder. And as Scott already noted, I am limited with this to, okay, I'm on RHEL 9.4, I'm going to build RHEL 9.4. I'm on x86-64, I'm going to build x86-64. So if I want other build environments, I need to have several machines running the versions of RHEL that I want to be able to build. So that's one of the drawbacks of RHEL image builder. One of the really nice things about RHEL image builder is, one, it gives you a couple more options during the build, right? Which I kind of like. However, there's a couple things that Insights image builder does that RHEL image builder doesn't. They're not always in parity compliance. So maybe there's something you really want, a feature that is in one and not the other, that'll help you decide which one you want to use. But the other really awesome thing is, this is a machine I put where I want it, right? It could be in my secure data center. It could be on a cloud provider. It could be, running wherever it is that I want to run RHEL. So maybe that's really important to you. It also means that you can put more sensitive data in this if you wanted to, because you completely control it. It's not run by us. It's not, whatever. It's in a place you can secure. So just things to keep in mind. So I'm going to make a new blueprint, even though I've got one here already, just to show you kind of how the wizard works in RHEL image builder, because it is slightly different. Now, the first thing we got to do is give it a name. You're going to notice that already it looks different. There's no side menu here like Scott had in Insights image builder, and you'll see why in just a second. So we're going to just call this, I clicked in the box, type in the box, ITT134, just because, really handy. And we're going to give it a description first. Notice Scott gave a description at the end. I'm giving it at the beginning.
And the reason for these differences is that I know everybody's like, oh, Red Hat, there's only one Red Hat and only one strategy and method of doing things because there's only one Red Hat. The reality is, like, we have a whole bunch of different engineering teams. And so there's an engineering team that manages this product and an engineering team that manages the Insights image builder, and they're separate. And they do talk, but sometimes they implement things differently, or somebody's like, oh, I want to pull this this feature request into my thing, and the other team didn't prioritize that feature request yet. So that's
Right.
why there's some differences between the two.
Right. So it's asking me about packages already. Notice it didn't ask me what repositories to enable. That's because it reads the repositories from the host that I'm running it on, right? So another case where this is sharing, and why does it keep doing that? Must be because I made it bigger. Let me make it smaller again. I think the UI is getting confused because of the the zoom. Okay, so where was I? I was on packages, right? You can see the menu's back now, but the menu looks totally different. The customizations pane is different, right? Because there's a bunch of extra things in here that I can do that I couldn't do through Insights Image Builder. So again, we can add a package. I'm just going to add the good old favorite HTTPD. Why does it keep doing that to me, Scott? This is not helping my demo. Search. Get me the thing. There we go. All right. And you can actually add kernel arguments if you want to. Again, something that Insights Image Builder didn't do, but this will. I can add in like legitimate, just type in kernel arguments or the kernel that I'd like it to run, right? So another place where we can add some extra. Why is it doing that? It's like the page is refreshing or something on me and going back. Okay, so I can use automatic partitioning or manually configure partitions. Now, the difference here is with RHEL Image Builder, when I later define the OpenSCAP policy that I want it to use, it does not automatically put the partitions in place. So I have to know what I need to put in here, and this is where I would do it, right? So, not helping me here. So you're going to have to beforehand know what the policy requires, right? And that's just the way RHEL Image Builder works versus the way Insights Image Builder works. I'm going to leave it at automatic for now, just because I feel like if I start delving into that UI, it's going to refresh on me and kill me. I can enable or disable services selectively. I can just tell it, like, I want to make sure, I don't know, cups is turned off, and I can say that's disabled in here. There we go again with the thing. Firewall, I can define ports and services. So we're gonna enable HTTP, right, as an enabled service. I can also say services I want to explicitly block. I can add zones to the firewall, which is something we talked about when we talked about Firewall D in a previous episode. Users, again, there's a whole separate call out here for users. I can just go like add user, and then the thing refreshes on me again, and I can't actually do the thing. So I can add in a user with their password and their SSH key. I can type the password here in plain text, and it'll hash it to put it into the script, right? So I don't have to worry about whether it's saving that securely or not. So I'm going to go Nate and I don't know, test as an awesome password right there. We can give it an SSH key. We can make that user a server administrator. And then it does the thing again. It's really killing my demo, Scott. It's like, all right, we can add additional groups, right? Which you might think, well, why didn't it add groups before users? Because then I could go back and say, I also want this user in a group, but whatever, this is the order that it's in. If I add a group, I can then add the user that I just created to that group, right? SSH keys, this would be additional SSH keys. So if there's like system users I want to add SSH keys to, that kind of stuff, you can do that through here. Again, you might say, well, why are these separate? Because there's use cases where there might be a user that already exists that you're trying to add an SSH key. Sorry, I'm rushing here. With the UI being weird, I want to get through these things. Like I said, I've already got a template done that we'll go and look at when I'm finished with this. Time zone and NTP servers, again, right? Extra things that you might care about. Locale or locale, right? Languages you want installed. You can set the host name, right? So if you know what the host name of this machine is going to be when you go to deploy it, you can set that to begin with, right? Or maybe you don't want to because this is going to be a golden image that you then redeploy several times. Let's see, FIDO device stuff, good stuff. And this is what I wanted to get to was OpenSCAP. Now, you'll notice this is different. I have to put in the data stream and the profile ID, okay? And there it goes again. This is going to kill me when I try to put this in here. Let me see if I can just edit this image instead. This might be easier to show you what I'm trying to show you. Here, if I click on OpenSCAP. So this is the same thing it was asking me for in that wizard. You have to put in the data stream, which if you remember from our OpenSCAP episode, or OpenSCAP episodes, I should say, where JSCAR helped us out. When you run OpenSCAP, you have to tell it, where's the data stream? Where am I reading these profiles from? And that's on your local file system on your machine. That's what came from that SCAP security guide that I said we had to have installed before we got started here. User share, XML, SCAP, SSG, content, blah, blah, blah. There's an XML file in there you have to point to. And obviously, if you've got a custom data stream, you can put that in here. It doesn't have to be the one that's included with the SCAP security guide if you have your own custom rule sets. And then you have to tell it what profile. And again, the profile, like, how would you know to type this in here? XCCF, org, SSG, project, content, blah, 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 blah. Well, if you use the OpenSCAP tool on the command line, you can tell it to list profiles. Again, we covered that in our previous episode about OpenSCAP. So you just literally copy it from there, paste it in here, and then it'll know what profile it's supposed to use. So that would have been, in that wizard that we just had to cancel out of. And then once you get through all of those things, this is actually handy, because if you need to go back and make changes to that blueprint, this is the UI that you're presented with to get that done, right? So like I did before with that automatic partitioning, if I changed my mind, or if after I was done, I decided I really need to go figure out what partitions that that policy needed me to set, and I've got that all documented, I can come in here and make those changes. So once you finish the wizard, you're not locked into the choices that you made. And same deal with Insights Image Builder. You can go back and make those changes afterward. All right, and then I would just click Create Image. And what this will do is it'll add a build to my queue. Now, once I find this UI a lot easier to work with, but you can get through the command line a TOML file, which has all of these choices in it, right? And then you can say, save that, export it to a different machine. Again, if you have several different versions of RHEL you're trying to build, maybe you take that TOML file, put it on a RHEL 8 machine. There may be changes you'd have to make based on package names and compatibility and whatever, but it might give you a good starting point. But you can kick off builds from the command line as well, which I think is really handy. So you can just go to the command line and say, all right, it's Q2, I need to build a new image, go build, right? And then it goes and does its thing. So just keep that in mind. So we're going to do the create image. No, wait, that's not what I wanted to do. I don't want to make a new one. I want to build this image. Right. So if I go back to blueprints and here click create image. That's bad naming, Scott. I'm going to file a bug. Create image should not be the same name as the build image. So no, that is doing the same thing. Oh no, this is sorry, I'm off today. This is asking me what output I want. And you see there's a whole bunch in here, and there it goes again with that refresh crap. Similar to what we saw on Insights Image Builder, but you'll notice there's a bunch of other things here, like RHEL for Edge. I don't think we had that option in Insights Image Builder. Google Cloud, we had that, whatever. We're going to do the QCOW too. We're just going to hit next quick before it refreshes and then create, because I want to show you what this looks like. If I go over, so you see here, it tells me that it's creating. If I go to images, now you're going to see there's a new image build in queue. Now this is, of course, running locally on that machine that I'm using to run Image Builder on. And then I can, once it's done, I export that image in this very similar fashion to how you would do it with Insights Image Builder. You just click on the thing there. It'll let you download the image. So I do have a pre-made image, but we're already pretty over. I was going to show you how you would then run this in a home lab like I've got, but it's basically you take that disk image and you build a new VM and import that disk, right? And up it comes. But that's pretty specific to my home lab. Your mileage may vary. So did we have any questions? I'm sorry about the wizard refreshing on me and I wasn't able to show it as well as I wanted to.
Well, and I put in the chat that I suspect it's like when you're using the latest browser, you also want to use the latest cockpit. Because sometimes changes to Chrome or whatever will change how the page renders.
I went through this the other day and it worked perfectly. So I don't know why it's giving me trouble now. I mean, literally 2 days ago when I built this machine, it worked fine. I blame the screen share. I think it's the screen share's fault.
That could also be. So William Green asked, can you set up LVM partitioning to match something like STIG requirements that SCAP would expect?
Does Image Builder support LVM?
So Insight's Image Builder uses LVM by default. So when we were looking at the list of file systems that it was creating them on
right.
LVM managed layout.
Yeah, I think this does as well, because it doesn't let you specify whether it's LVM or not. I would have to boot up my machine and look, but I think it does use LVM. I mean, that's basically the accepted standard for when you install RHEL. So I don't know why it wouldn't use LVM.
Well,
right?
There was a lot of weirdness around cloud where like for cloud imaging.
Yeah.
So for Insight's Image Builder, the answer is yes. In fact, it even says in the partition stuff that it is using LVM and then just making your file systems as logical volumes on top of it.
Yeah, it doesn't say anything about it.
Shantanu asked if there were any limitations on how many images or how frequently we build images or anything like that with Insight's Image Builder, even if one only had a developer for individuals account. And as far as I know, no. But also,
yeah, the limitation is how long they're stored.
Well, that's for sure. So once they're built, they only exist for a few hours.
Right.
But I've also not tried to build like 87,000 images at one time. So I don't know if there are some other safeguards put into place for performing that work. But for developer for individuals, you have 16 system entitlements. So I mean, how many images do you need to build for 16 system entitlements at one time?
All of them, obviously.
Yeah, clearly. All right. But I think that runs us off the end of questions.
Cool. So yeah, I'm actually curious now. I'm gonna stand up a VM using that image and see if it's LVM because I think it should be. But you're right, I don't know for certain.
Well, Nate's doing that. Next week, did we pick a topic for next week, Nate?
If we did, I don't remember what it is.
Yeah, I don't remember. So, next week we'll be back for another Into the Terminal. We'll figure out what we're actually going to do when the time comes. And Nate has been doing a great job getting us scheduled earlier in the week. So if you check in the channel, you'll see that what we've chosen as our topic, usually Wednesday-ish, I think.
Yeah, Tuesday. I try to start them on Tuesday, but they're usually Wednesday morning by the time I get them done. So,
right on. Well, once your manager like gives you all the feedback of how many fonts to change, that guy.
Yeah, you guys, you have no idea the back and forth we go through to try to decide like what's the exact title that this should be.
What do you mean by the? Or is it the?
Shouldn't there be a comma there? We need more Linux.
All right. Next week, we will also be having another in the RHEL 10 beta series with Matt Mycini. Those happen Wednesdays, noon Eastern time. But after next week, we're going to take a week off because it turns out that all of us are going to be doing a meeting in Las Vegas.
That is true.
So, yep. And I know that we will be seeing some of our frequent watchers who are also Red Hatters in Las Vegas.
Yep.
And then we'll be back after that. So for those of you who don't get to go to Las Vegas next weekend or next week, 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
We'll see you
week after next.
We're here.
There's lots of ways to say it.
Away, and then we'll be back again. But Nate, how's your box coming?
It's not showing me a console, so I had to connect it to the network so that I could get it to come up, and all it really did was take longer because I don't have an IP address yet.
Live demo, what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, live demo, what could possibly go wrong? That is true.
This is why we don't go off script.
I don't know why it's not showing me a VM console. Or why it has that IP address when it's not. Something has gone horribly wrong. I can't check.
Well, hopefully all of your other services are still operating for your whole.
Yeah, right. Totally destroyed my hypervisor by trying to boot that ISO or that image. That doesn't sound true.
In a moment, we'll see all the lights just turn off in Nate's house because of his.
I know, right? Right. The same box controls my smart lighting. So if all the lights turn off, then you know bad stuff has occurred.
All right, everyone. Don't forget to mash that like and subscribe if you made it this far. Clearly, you're into it. So we'll see you next week.
Yeah, everybody have a great one. We'll see you next time.